Hello, it's Mrs. McCullough, and we're in lesson number 4 in our series about how readers track characters. And so far, we've been learning that readers will track one idea, and we are focusing on characters. They know all the details in the whole entire passage on just that one facet. And so that's what we've done. We collected the do and the say and the think details of just one character across the whole text, beginning, middle, and end. And in the last lesson, we talked about what do you do with those details? So we actually start to put some of those details together, and then we look for groupings. We look for memories or patterns or relationships and things that go together. And so we worked on that to figure out what the character trait is. The character trait is the personality and how the character is throughout the whole text. Now, one of the things that does happen is that characters change. They change in the stories. And so while a trait stays the same, it's always the same, there is another thing that I want to focus on, and it's how the character will change from beginning to end. So we're going to put this piece up on our anchor chart now, because last lesson was the character trait that stays the same, and this lesson is the character change. Okay, so what do you mean a character changes? Well, a character behaves in one way at the beginning of the text, and then there's a problem, and there are different events that happen, and in the end, the character is different. Now, the personality stays the same, but there's something else that's going on within the character. They're one way in the beginning and another way at the end. Okay, so what am I talking about? Well, let's go back to the stories that we've been working on. Let's go back to A Bad Case of Stripes. And remember when we met Camilla in the beginning? She loved lima beans, but she never ate them. And there was a reason why she wouldn't eat them. Do you remember what that was? Yeah, she wanted to fit in. And other kids don't like lima beans, and so she didn't want to be different. Okay, but then she woke up with a case of the stripes. Remember that? And everything was getting really bad. But then at the end of the story, she was different. She had a character change. So remember this part? Yeah, when the woman came in and asked Camilla to eat the lima beans, she said, yuck. Remember, that was a detail that we jotted down on the tracker and that we used for our inference silhouette. Camilla said, yuck. Nobody likes lima beans, especially me. She lied. She didn't even tell the truth. But she couldn't take it anymore. And finally, she cried out to the lady. And she said, the truth is, I love lima beans. And so at the end, then she ate the lima beans. And she was a lot happier. She didn't care about what other people thought. So in the beginning, she did not want to eat lima beans because she was worried about what people thought. But at the end, she ate lima beans and she didn't care what they thought. Okay, so how do we know what makes them change from beginning to end? What makes them change? Well, it's this part right here. And it's actually a little triangle. Okay, let me show you. So what did the character learn? You see, it's easy to figure out how they changed. They're one way in the beginning and another way at the end. What's more difficult is to figure out what did the character learn. And so when we go back into the text, the way to figure out what the character learned, why the character changed, is to go into the most crucial part of the story, where it's just getting so bad that it seems like nothing's going to work, nothing's going to help. And it was right here. It was right here in this piece when the woman came in and when Camilla lied and said, no one likes lima beans, then the lady started to walk away. And Camilla started thinking about, this was terrible. Being laughed at by her friends was nothing compared to this. And she knew she had to do something different to change it. And so that's the tipping point. That was the point where Camilla realized, I have to tell the truth. I have to be who I really am. Okay? So what did the character learn? That's what really helps us with this. What did the character learn? That's how we figure out how they changed from beginning to end. Okay? So I'm going to put this up on our chart here, because that's what we're really working on. What's that tipping point that made them change from beginning to end? So let's try it out with the text that we've been working on together. I want you to do some thinking about after the fall, okay? So in the beginning, how was Humpty? What did Humpty think, or what did Humpty feel, or what did Humpty believe? What do we know about Humpty? Yeah, he was miserable, wasn't he? He was afraid. What was he afraid of? He was afraid of heights because he was afraid he might fall off that wall again. You're so right. And so he wasn't doing the things that he wanted to do. He believed it was better to give up going to places up high because he was so afraid. So that's how he was in the beginning. He walked past the wall. What happened? He wouldn't even go up. Okay, but something was different with Humpty. He changed at the end. What happened? Think about it for a minute. Why? Excuse me, how did he change? How was he? Yeah, then he decided that he better go up the wall, right? And when he did, he was no longer afraid. And then we saw what happened. He started to crack and he became a bird. Okay, but why? Why did Humpty Dumpty change? What did he learn? What really became the tipping point to move him from being afraid to not being afraid? What was it? What happened in the passage? I've got the passage up, and let's take it into this moment. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. What happened here? His bird plane got stuck up on the wall, right? Yeah, that was like the worst moment for him. He was just so upset and distraught. And when that happened, he started remembering things. He started thinking about all the things that he had missed and all the time that he had spent working on the plane. And he just decided at that moment, boom, that's the tipping point where he decided he wasn't going to live like this anymore. Now he's going to face his fears and he's actually going to go up that wall. Well, you guys, that's what readers do. They track characters so they can figure out how they changed from beginning to end, but also why they changed. What did the character learn? So I have a resource for us. This is called the character change sheet. And it says, what does the character think or believe at the beginning of the story? And what does the character think or believe at the end of the story? And so we've got Humpty Dumpty right here. He was too afraid to be up on the wall with the birds. That's how he was in the beginning. But at the end, he went where he wanted, even though he was terrified. Yeah, because he was still afraid, remember? He was still like nervous and terrified, but he faced his fear and he did what he needed to do to be happy. And so where was that little tipping point? It was once he lost his plane up on the wall. Why did he change? How is he a better person? That's the hard part in this character change piece. Humpty Dumpty lost his plane up on the wall and remembered how happy he was up there. He had to face his fear to be happy. So that's what I want you to think about in your assignment today. So we're going to go back to the text that you guys have been working on with Frog and Toad. And remember, it's not the whole text. It's just that third chapter, A Lost Button. And you collected the details about Toad, and you collected what he did, what he said, what he thought, all of those pieces. And then you were trying to come up with a character trait. So how would you describe Toad's personality? But you know what? Toad changes from beginning to end. He does. He's one way in the beginning, and he's another way at the end. And so what I'd like for you to do is to use this character change chart to kind of help you frame it. So write a sentence about how Toad was in the beginning, and then write a sentence about how Toad was at the end. But the important part is, why did he change? What caused the change? And remember, when we talk about that tipping point, it's like when the story was at its worst, when it was just the worst moment for Toad in that whole entire passage. Maybe he got upset. Maybe he thought there was no hope. What caused him to change? And how did he become a better person? That's what your assignment will be since you're in Mrs. McCullough's class, but your teacher might have an even better idea.